Life is not about waiting on someone else to hand you opportunities, money, or success. It's about owning your life, owning your dreams, and owning your grind. Too many of us are waiting for approval, for someone to give us permission to shine. But the truth is, you owe you. You owe it to yourself to wake up every day and give 120%. You owe it to yourself to stop playing small, to stop making excuses, and to start becoming the person you were created to be. Nobody else can live your life for you. Nobody else can pay the price for your success. You owe you. When you stop and think about it, most of us spend way too much of our lives waiting. We wait for permission, we wait for validation, we wait for somebody to recognize us, approve us, or give us a green light to go after the very thing that's already burning inside of us. And the truth is that wait is the silent killer of dreams. How many people went to their grave with songs unsung, with books unwritten, with businesses unbuilt, because they were waiting for someone to clap for them first, waiting for a teacher to say they were smart enough, waiting for a parent to finally acknowledge them, waiting for a boss to promote them, waiting for society to give them permission to step out. And here's the reality. Nobody is coming to give you that permission slip. Life doesn't work like that. You've been given breath, you've been given life, and you've been given the gift of choice. That's all the permission you need. Think about it. When a baby decides to stand up and walk, nobody hands them a certificate saying, okay, now you're officially allowed to try walking. No, they stand, they wobble, they fall, they get back up. And eventually, after falling over and over again, they learn to walk. That baby didn't need permission. That baby didn't need a motivational speech. That baby didn't need approval. It had an instinct, a natural pull inside to move forward. That same pull lives in you. And the difference is, as you grew up, the world started layering rules, opinions, judgments, and expectations on top of you, and you started doubting that instinct. You started looking around instead of looking within. And the moment you began to wait for permission, you put your own life on pause. You have to understand, greatness doesn't come from waiting for someone to open the door for you. Greatness comes from having the courage to knock the door down when it doesn't open. It comes from building your own door if one doesn't exist. Every person you admire, every person you look at successful, they didn't wait for approval. They acted, and because they acted, the world had no choice but to take notice. They wrote the book nobody asked them to write. They launched the business nobody thought would work. They created the music people laughed at in the beginning. And now, because they didn't wait, because they gave themselves permission, they changed history. Waiting for permission is dangerous because it means you're giving someone else power over your life. It's like saying, I'll live when they say I can. I'll dream when they approve of it. I'll act when they clap. Do you realize how fragile that makes your future? You are putting your destiny in the hands of people who don't have to live with the consequences of your decision. They don't wake up in your skin. They don't deal with your battles. They don't feel the fire that burns in your soul. But yet, you're letting their opinion decide how you move. That's slavery disguised as respect. You cannot afford to let someone else's approval chain you down. The reality is, most people will never give you permission because they don't even give themselves permission. They live small. They dream small. They never went after what they wanted. And because they did, they'll tell you why you can't. That's why when you share your big dreams with small-minded people, they laugh, they criticize, they discourage. But that's not really about you. That's about them projecting their own fear and regret onto you. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing it. You'll start thinking maybe they're right. Maybe you should wait. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you're not good enough. But deep down, you know that's a lie. Deep down, you know you've been called for something greater. Deep down, that you know you're not supposed to just survive. You're supposed to thrive. Every day you delay is another day lost. Every moment you spend waiting for somebody else's approval is another opportunity wasted. You can't get those days back. And let me tell you something. Time is the most expensive currency you have. You can lose money and get it back. You can lose a job and get another. You can even lose people and find new connection. But you will never get back time. And the enemy of time is waiting. That's why you gotta kill the habit of waiting for permission. Because the longer you wait, the more life slips through your fingers. Let me break it down. Nobody gave Oprah permission to build a global media empire. Nobody gave Steve Jobs permission to think differently. Nobody gave Elon Musk permission to launch rockets. Nobody gave Michael Jordan permission to spend hours in the gym while everybody else slept. And yet, they did. They stepped out without permission. And because of that, the world had to adjust to them. They didn't wait for a seat at the table. They built their own table. And you can too. You see, when you stop waiting for permission, something powerful happens. You unlock confidence. Confidence doesn't come from waiting for people to tell you you're good enough. Confidence comes from taking action, from failing, from learning, from trying again, and proving to yourself that you can. The more you act without waiting, the stronger your belief in yourself becomes. And belief is contagious. Once you start believing, others will start believing too. But it has to start with you. This doesn't mean you won't feel fear. Fear will always be there. The fear of failing, the fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, all of that will show up the moment you stop waiting and start moving. But listen carefully. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move despite fear. And the only way you'll ever grow is by moving through fear. You will never build confidence in a classroom of comfort. You build confidence in the battlefield of risk. I know some of you are thinking, but what if I fail? Let me answer that: you will fail. That's not a maybe, that's a guarantee. But failure isn't the end. Failure is tuition. It's the price you pay for success. Every failure is a lesson. Every failure is a lesson. Every failure is a stepping stone. And when you stop waiting for permission, you give yourself permission to fail forward, to learn, to become. To become. Failure is not your enemy waiting. Imagine standing at the end of your life, looking back and realizing the only thing that stopped you from greatness wasn't lack of talent, wasn't lack of resources, wasn't lack of opportunity. It was waiting. Waiting for a nod, waiting for applause, waiting for someone to push you. That's regret. And regret is far heavier than failure. Failure stings for a moment. Regret changes you forever. That's why you got to act now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when it feels right. Now, you owe you that. You owe you the freedom of living without chains. You owe you the joy of chasing your dreams. You owe you the chance to see what happens if you give 120% every day without waiting for somebody else to approve of it. Your life is your responsibility. And until you accept that, you'll stay stuck. But the moment you decide you don't need permission, that's the moment your life begins to shift. So the next time you hear that voice telling you, wait until they approve, shut it down. The next time somebody laughs at your dream, use it as fuel. The next time fear creeps in, remember that courage is moving forward anyway. And above all, remind yourself daily, I don't owe anyone else permission. I don't owe anyone else approval. I don't owe anyone else the right to decide my future. I owe me. And when you finally understand that, when you wake up every day and say, I don't need permission to be great, you become unstoppable. Because the world can only stop those who are waiting. The world can't stop someone who has already decided. And once you stop waiting, once you decide, there's nothing left but action. And action is the difference between wishing and winning, between dreaming and doing, between existing and living. So don't wait, don't look around. Don't ask for a green light. Give yourself permission. Own your destiny. Step into your greatness, because at the end of the day, you owe you. Taking full responsibility is the single most liberating and at the same time, the single most challenging decision you will ever make in your life. It is the turning point between being stuck and moving forward, between being a victim of your circumstances and becoming the architect of your destiny. Too many people spend their entire lives pointing fingers, blaming others, blaming situations, blaming the government, blaming their family, blaming their boss, blaming the system. And as long as you keep blaming, you give away your power. You cannot change what you refuse to own. You cannot fix what you refuse to take responsibility for. The moment you decide that your life is your responsibility and no one else's, you unlock a freedom that most people will never experience. When you take full responsibility, you stop living in excuses and start living in solutions. Excuses are comfortable. They make us feel better about why we're not where we should be. It's easy to say, I didn't get the job because the economy is bad, or I can't lose weight because I don't have time, or I can't chase my dream because my parents didn't support me. Excuses protect your ego in the moment. but they destroy your future in the long run. They allow you to sleep at night, but they rob you of the life you could have had. Responsibility, on the other hand, is uncomfortable because it puts the mirror back on you. It forces you to admit if it's going to change, it has to start with me. That's heavy. That's sobering. But that's also empowering because it means you are in control. Think about the most successful people in history. None of them lived perfect lives. Many came from broken homes, poverty, rejection, or worse. But the one thing they all had in common was this. They refused to let their circumstances define them. They refused to let blame be the narrative of their story. They took responsibility for their own growth, their own choices, and their own futures. You don't control where you were born. You don't control who your parents were. You don't control the cards you were dealt. But you do control how you play them. And that's where responsibility lives. Not in what you were given, but in what you do with what you have. Responsibility means saying, I am where I am today because of the choices I made yesterday. That's not always easy to admit. It's hard to swallow the reality that maybe you're not broke because of the economy. Maybe you're broke because of your spending habits. Maybe you're not out of shape because of genetics. Maybe you're out of shape because of your eating choices and lack of exercise. Maybe you're not unhappy because of your partner. Maybe you're unhappy because you haven't done the inner work to find joy within yourself. Those are tough pills to swallow. But when you do, you realize something incredible. If your past choices got you here, then your future choices can take you somewhere better. If your decisions created your current life, then better decisions can create a better life. People who refuse to take responsibility live in a constant cycle of blame. They point to their childhood, their city, their lack of education, their skin color, their gender, their environment. And while those things may present real challenges, they are not death sentences. There are countless examples of people who came from worse situations than you and still rose above them. The difference wasn't opportunity. The difference was ownership. They owned their lives. They said, yes, this is hard. Yes, the odds are against the odds I wasn't given much. But that's my responsibility now. That's my fight. And I won't stop until I win. That's the mindset that changes everything. When you don't take responsibility, you live in a passenger seat of your own life. Imagine being in a car, but instead of sitting behind the wheel, you're sitting in the passenger seat blaming the driver for every turn, every wrong road, every delay. That's how most people live, pointing at everyone else who's driving their life while refusing to grab the wheel. Responsibility is grabbing that wheel and saying, this is my car, this is my road, I choose where we're going. It might be scary at first because now if you crash, it's on you, crash, it's on you. But at least you're in control. At least you know you can correct it. At least you know you're not sitting helplessly hoping someone else gets it right. There's a phrase people love to use. It's not my fault. And maybe that's true. Maybe what happened to you wasn't your fault. Maybe the trauma, the setback, the betrayal, the pain wasn't something you asked for. But here's the difference. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal, to rise, to keep moving. Life isn't fair, and waiting for it to be fair will keep you stuck forever. Responsibility says, it happened, but I choose how I respond, choose what I do next. That choice is where your power lives. Taking full responsibility also means refusing to outsource your happiness. Too many people place their joy in the hands of others. They say, I'll be happy when someone loves me. I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll be happy when I make this much money. That's dangerous because you're tying your peace to things you don't fully control. Responsibility says, my happiness, my joy, my peace is mine to create. It's not up to my spouse. It's not up to my boss. It's not up to the government. It's on me. When you realize that, you stop waiting for circumstances to change and you start creating joy where you are. Another part of responsibility is discipline. People want success, but they don't want responsibility for the habits that create. You can pray for a better body, but if you don't take responsibility for what you eat and how you move, nothing changes. You can dream of financial freedom, but if you don't take responsibility for how you spend, you'll stay stuck. You can want better relationships, but if you don't take responsibility for how you treat people, you'll stay lonely. Responsibility and discipline go hand in hand because every choice you make is either moving you closer to what you want or further away from it. And once you accept that, excuses no longer have a place in your vocabulary. The beauty of responsibility is that it shifts your mindset from victim to victim. Say a why me. Victor say a try me. Victims focus on what they can't control. Victors focus on what they can. Victims wait for life to happen. Victors make life happen. And the only thing separating the two is responsibility. The same storm that sinks one ship can propel another ship forward, depending on how the captain steers. Your life is no different. The storms will come regardless. Responsibility is about how you steer. It's also important to understand that responsibility is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Every day you wake up, you have to decide, am I going to blame today or am I going to own today? Am I going to make excuses or am I going to make progress? Am I going to point fingers or am I going to point at myself? Taking responsibility once feels good. Taking responsibility every day transforms your life. Because the truth is responsibility compounds. The more you take it, the stronger you become. The more you own your choices, the more power your life becomes. And here's the secret. Responsibility is attractive. People respect those who own their lives. Leaders emerge when they take responsibility, not just for themselves, but for others. When you stop blaming and start owning, people notice. They see the strength. They see the accountability. They see the maturity. And doors open because the world is starving for people who take ownership. Blame pushes opportunities away. Responsibility draws them in. At the end of the day, you have two choices. You can either keep telling the story of why you can't, or you can take responsibility and write the story of how you did. Both stories are available to you. One keeps you stuck. The other sets you free. Nobody else can choose for you. That choice is yours, and it always will be. You owe you that choice. You owe you the freedom that comes from taking full responsibility. You owe you the dignity of knowing that your life is not at the mercy of anyone else's decisions. You owe you the growth that only comes when you stop blaming and stop building. Because the truth is, nobody else is responsible for your dream. Nobody else is responsible for your health. Nobody else is responsible for your happiness. It's on you. And once you fully embrace that, nothing can stop you. Demanding more from yourself than anyone else can is a principle that separates the average from the exceptional. Most people go through life doing only what is required of them, only what is necessary to get by, only what someone else tells them to do. They operate on the minimum, never realizing that true greatness is born from exceeding expectations, not others' expectations, but your own. When you demand more from yourself than any coach, boss, teacher, or parent could ever demand, you step into a level of accountability and growth that few will ever reach. It's not about external pressure. It's about internal standard. It's about refusing to let anyone else push you harder than you push yourself. The problem with relying on outside demands is that they are limited. Your coach may push you to a certain point. Your boss may expect you to hit certain goals. Your teacher may give you assignments. But all of those demands are capped at their vision of your potential, not yours. They don't truly know what's inside of you. They don't know the extra gears you have, the hidden capacity, the untapped greatness. Only you know that. And if you wait for them to pull it out of you, you'll never reach the fullness of who you can become. You must set your own standard higher than what anyone else can impose on you. That's how champions are made. Think about the greatest athletes, the ones we celebrate as legends. Michael Jordan wasn't just great because of his natural talent. He was great because he demanded more from himself than his coaches, teammates, or fans ever could. Kobe Bryant wasn't known as the Black Mamba just because of skill. He was relentless in practice, shooting thousands of shots long after practice ended, demanding a perfection from himself that no one else dared to expect. Winner Williams didn't dominate tennis because her trainers expected her to. She dominated because she demanded more from herself on the court, in the gym, and in her mindset than any coach could. The common thread among all champions is this: their self-demand exceeded external demand. When you adopt that mindset, you stop measuring yourself by other standards. You stop saying, I did enough because they said I did well. You start asking, did I really give everything? Did I really empty the tank? Did I really go all in? And most times, the honest answer is no, most time. You know you could have done more, studied longer, worked harder, focused deeper, sacrificed greater. That's the voice you must listen to. That's the standard you must hold yourself to. Because the truth is, the external world will often celebrate mediocrity. People will clap for you doing the bare minimum because they don't know your maximum. But you know, and if you accept their applause instead of holding yourself accountable, you cheat yourself out of your true greatness. Demanding more from yourself also means refusing to settle for comfort. Comfort is seductive. It tells you that you've done enough, that you deserve a break, that you worked hard and should coast. But comfort is also the enemy of growth. Growth only happens in discomfort, in stretching beyond what you thought you could do. When you demand more from yourself, you willingly walk into discomfort. You willingly go the extra mile, do the extra rep, study the extra hour, take the harder route. Because you know that's where the transformation happens. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about elevating yourself. It's about training your mind and body to go where others won't, so you can achieve what others can't. Most people only give their best when someone is watching. They show up strong when the coach is on the sideline, when the teacher is grading, when the boss is monitoring. But the real measure of excellence is what you demand of yourself when nobody is watching. Do you cut corners when you're alone, or do you hold yourself to the same standard regardless of who sees? Do you push through the last rep when you know no one else will notice? Or do you stop early because nobody will know the difference? That's the line between average and great. Average people perform when watched. Great people perform for themselves. They know that excellence is a personal contract, not a public performance. Demanding more from yourself is also about refusing to let your past victories make you lazy. Success can be dangerous because it convinces you that you've arrived. You get comfortable, you slow down, you lower the bar. But if you're truly demanding more from yourself, yesterday's success becomes today's motivation to aim high. You don't dwell on what you've already achieved. You ask, what's next? How can I grow? How can I push beyond this level? Champions are never satisfied. Champions are never satisfied. They celebrate briefly, then they reset their standard. That's why they keep winning, because their demand never decreases. Another key to demanding more from yourself is self-honesty. It's easy to lie to yourself, to say, I worked hard when you know you did. It's easy to convince yourself you're tired when you got more in the tank. But honesty is the foundation of self-demand. You must be brutally honest about your effort, your focus, your discipline. Did you really study as much as you could have? Did you really give 120% at practice? Or did you give 80% and call it enough? Did you really push through distractions, or did you let your phone steal your time? Self-demand requires self-truth. You can't demand more if you won't admit where you fell short. This principle doesn't just apply to sports or careers. It applies to life. Demand more from yourself in your relationships. Don't just give the minimum to your family, your partner, your friends. Demand more patience, more love, more listening, more presence. Demand more from yourself financially. Don't just work for survival. Demand that you create wealth, that you save, invest, and prepare for the future. Demand more from yourself spiritually. Don't just go through the motion. Demand that you seek deeper purpose, that you grow in character, that you become someone of integrity and impact. Every area of your life can and should be touched by this principle, because excellence is not compartmentalized, a lifestyle. When you start demanding more, people will notice. At first, they may not understand. They may call you obsessed, too intense, too serious. They may laugh when you stay late, when you wake up early, when you choose discipline over distraction. But eventually the results will speak. The same people who laughed will ask how you did it. And the answer will be simple. I demanded more from myself than anyone else ever could. That's what sets you apart. That's what builds legacy. That's what transforms potential into performance. Demanding more also means raising your standards continuously. What was excellent yesterday must become average today. What was once difficult must eventually become normal. This is the law of growth. What challenges you now will be easy later if you keep pushing. But if you stop raising the bar, you stagnate. Life is about constant elevation. You don't demand more just once. You demand more every season, every year, every stage. You evolve because you refuse to stay the same. And finally, demanding more from yourself than anyone else can is about ownership of destiny. Nobody else can want it for you more than you want it for yourself. Nobody else can sacrifice for you. Nobody else can put in the work for you. Others can inspire you, guide you, cheer you on. But at the end of the day, it's you against you. It's your standards against your excuses. It's your hunger against your comfort. The only question is, will you demand more or will you settle? You owe you that demand. You owe you the discipline, the sacrifice, the relentless pursuit of excellence. You owe you the truth about your effort. You owe you the refusal to settle for average when greatness is possible. Because at the end of your life, nobody else will have to answer for your wasted potential. You will. And when that day comes, may you have the peace of knowing that you demanded every ounce of greatness out of yourself, that you left nothing on the table, that you lived and worked and loved at a level that no one else could demand of you, because you demanded it of yourself first. Excuses are the invisible chains that keep people locked in the same place year after year. On the surface, they feel harmless. They sound reasonable. They even convince us that we're being logical. But in reality, excuses are the biggest enemy to our progress. They masquerade as explanation, but they're really just lies we tell ourselves to justify staying where we are. When you eliminate excuses and replace them with action, you step into a new dimension of growth. Because excuses keep you stagnant while action propels you forward. And the truth is, you can have excuses or you can have results, but you can't have both. Think about how many times you've heard or said phrases like, I don't have time, I don't have money, I'm too tired, I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right season. Those statements feel true in the moment, but in reality, they're just protective shields against discomfort. I don't have time really means it's not a priority. Oh, I don't have money often means I'm not willing to sacrifice or find another way. I'll start tomorrow really means I'm afraid to start today. Excuses sound comforting because they relieve us from responsibility. They allow us to delay effort, but while excuses soothe us temporarily, they sabotage us permanently. The danger of excuses is that they multiply. One excuse gives birth to another, and soon your whole life becomes a web of rationalization. You explain away your lack of progress. You explain away your lack of health. You explain away your lack of success until you built a prison made entirely of words. The scariest part is you don't even realize you're trapped because excuses feel so convincing. They become your truth. But here's the reality. Every time you choose an excuse over action, you're choosing comfort over growth. And that choice compounds until you wake up one day realizing you wasted years. Action, on the other hand, is the antidote to excuses. Action kills fear. Action destroys procrastination. Action silences the inner voice that says you can't. You don't overcome excuses by arguing with them. You overcome them by doing the very thing they're trying to keep you from doing. If you don't have time, make time. If you don't have money, find a creative way to start with what you have. If you don't feel ready, take the first step anyway. Action doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It creates them. Excuses look for reasons not to move. Action looks for ways to move forward despite reasons. People often wait for motivation before they take action. They say, I'll go to the gym when I feel like it, or I'll start the project when I'm inspired. But here's the truth. Motivation doesn't precede action. It follows it. When you start moving, motivation shows up. When you begin, energy appears. Excuses keep you waiting for feelings that may never come. Action says, I'll move first and my feelings will catch up later. That's why the most disciplined people in the world aren't necessarily the most motivated. They're simply the ones who have trained themselves to act regardless of how they feel. Excuses also love to disguise themselves as fairness. You'll hear people say it's not fair that they have more opportunities, or it's not fair that they have more support. And maybe that's true. Maybe life hasn't been fair to you. Maybe you didn't get the same resources, education, or connections as someone else. But fairness is irrelevant to actions. Relevant to action. The truth is, life will never be fair, and waiting for fairness is just another excuse. You can either spend your life demanding fairness, or you can spend your life building regardless of the odds. One keeps you bitter, The other makes you better. Another form of excuse is perfectionism. How many dreams have been delayed because someone said, it's not the right time, or I'm not ready yet? Perfectionism is really just fear in disguise. Fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. But here's the irony. You don't get better by waiting until you're perfect. You get better by starting while you're imperfect. Action allows you to improve. Excuses keep you stuck in planning mode forever. The person who launches messy will always beat the person who waits for perfect. Excuses also love to hide behind comparison. People say, I can't do it because someone else is already doing it better. Or why should I even try when there are people more talented than me? That's another trap. Someone else's greatness does not cancel out yours. Someone else's talent does not erase your gift. The only thing that disqualifies you is your own refusal to act. While you're making excuses, someone else with fewer resources, less talent, and more challenges is taking action and passing you by. Talent without action is wasted. Average with action beats talent with excuses every single time. Replacing excuses with action also requires accountability. You have to stop negotiating with yourself. Stop allowing yourself to say, I'll do it later, and then believe that lie. Hold yourself to a higher standard than your excuses. Set goals, write them down, make a schedule, and stick to it. When the excuse shows up, remind yourself of your commitment. Discipline is nothing more than remembering what you said you would do long after the feeling in which you said it has left. Your excuses will fade if your commitment is strong enough. Action doesn't mean huge leaps every day. It often means small, consistent steps that compound into transformation. Excuses make you believe you have to do everything at once, and since you can't, you do nothing. Action says, do what you can today and then do it again tomorrow. Over time, those small actions build momentum, and momentum crushes excuses. Momentum gives you proof that progress is possible. Once you see results, even small ones, excuses lose their power over you. Excuses also feed off of procrastination. I'll start tomorrow is one of the most common lies we tell ourselves. But tomorrow never comes, because when tomorrow arrives, you call it today and you push it off again. The cycle repeats endlessly. Action breaks that cycle by saying, and not tomorrow. Now, action doesn't care if you feel ready. Action doesn't care if the circumstances are perfect. It moves in the present moment, because that's the only place real change ever happens. The truth is, excuses are comfortable, but they're expensive. They cost you time. They cost you opportunities. They cost you growth. They may not charge you today, but they will bankrupt your future. Action, on the other hand, is uncomfortable, but it's rewarding. It stretches you, it challenges you, it costs you an effort and energy now, but it pays you back in success, freedom, and fulfillment later. You have to decide which price you're willing to pay. The comfortable cost of excuses or the demanding cost of action. One leads to regret, the other to reward. Imagine standing at the end of your life looking back. Will you remember the excuses you made, or will you remember the actions you took? Nobody tells stories about the excuse that held them back. They tell stories about the risks they took, the leaps they made, the actions that changed their lives. Regret is filled with I should have, and I could. Legacy is filled with I do. Which story do you want to tell? When you eliminate excuses and replace them with action, you not only transform your own life, but you transform your own life, but you inspire others. People see the courage it takes to move without the perfect plan, without all the resources, without waiting for ideal conditions. They see you act in spite of fear, and it gives them permission to do the same. Excuses spread like poison, but action spreads like fire. One paralyzes, the other ignites. And the world doesn't need more excuses. It needs more people bold enough to take action. So every time you hear an excuse forming in your mind, challenge it. Ask yourself, is this really true? Or is this fear talking? Is this reality, or is this comfort speaking? Then take action anyway. Even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, just move. Because action compounds and excuses collapse under the weight of consistent movement. The choice is always yours. Keep waiting for a perfect day that never comes, or take action today and create the future you've been dreaming about. And at the end of the day, you owe you action. You owe you the discipline to stop lying to yourself. You owe you the chance to see what's possible if you stop hiding behind excuses and start moving toward your destiny. Nobody else can eliminate your excuses for you. Nobody else can take action on your behalf. It's your life, your responsibility, your choice. Excuses or action, comfort or growth, regret or results. And when you finally choose action, when you finally silence the excuses, you'll discover that everything you ever wanted was on the other side of doing, not delaying. When we talk about owning your life, one of the most powerful principles that comes to the surface is accountability. Accountability is the bridge between intentions and results. Everyone can say they want success. Everyone can dream about a better future. And everyone can write down goals, but without accountability, those goals remain nothing more than wishful thinking. The truth is, accountability is not just about being answerable to others. It is about holding yourself responsible for your actions, your decisions, and ultimately, your destiny. When Eric Thomas says, "You owe you," it is a call to stop shifting blame. Stop looking for excuses and stop waiting for someone else to push you. It is about realizing that at the end of the day, you are the one who must answer for the way you live your life. Think about how often people fall into the trap of pointing fingers. They say, "I didn't succeed because my parents didn't support me," or "I couldn't reach my goals because life wasn't fair," or "I didn't achieve this because the system is against me." While those challenges may be real, accountability forces you to ask, "Oh, what can I do despite the obstacles?" The difference between people who win and people who give up is not the absence of difficulty. It is the decision to take responsibility even in the face of difficulty. Accountability says, yes, life is unfair, yes, it's tough, but I owe it to myself to find a way through. That mindset shifts you from being a victim of your circumstances to being a creator of your destiny. Imagine a person who sets out to lose weight. At first, they're excited, they're motivated, and they got a plan. But then life happens. They get busy with work, they're tired after a long day, or they don't feel like working out. Soon enough, they start skipping workouts and cheating on their diet. When the results don't come, they say, "Oh, well, I tried, but it didn't work." Accountability, however, would force them to look in the mirror and say, "I know it didn't work because I didn't stick to the plan. I made excuses, I didn't stay consistent, and I let comfort win over commitment." That level of honesty is not easy, but it is necessary. Accountability is uncomfortable because it removes the cushion of excuse. It demands honesty and ownership, even when it hurts. Accountability is also the fuel for discipline. Motivation might get started, but it will not sustain you. Motivation is like a spark. It can light a fire, but without discipline, that fire will burn out quickly. Discipline is what keeps you moving when motivation is gone. And discipline is born from accountability. When you wake up at 5 a.m. to work on your goals, even though you're tired, that's accountability to yourself. When you refuse to waste money on things you don't need because you're saving to build your business, that's accountability. When you study for hours, even though no one is checking on you, that's accountability. It is the quiet commitment to doing what needs to be done, whether or not anyone is watching. A major problem in our culture today is that too many people only perform when there is external accountability. They'll work hard if their boss is watching, but slack off when no one is around. They'll go to the gym if they have a trainer pushing them, but skip workouts if they're alone. They'll study hard if their teacher is strict, but neglect their books if left to their own devices. True accountability is not about being forced by someone else. It is about becoming the kind of person who pushes themselves, even in private. Success is built when nobody's watching. The work you put in behind the scenes, when there's no applause, no recognition, and no immediate reward, is the work that determines your future. When you embrace accountability, you stop lying to yourself. You stop saying things like, "I don't have time," when the truth is, you didn't make time. You stop saying, "I'll start tomorrow," when you know you could have started today. You stop saying, "I gave my best," when deep down you know you held back. One of the hardest truths you will ever face is that you are often the reason you're not where you want to be. Accountability forces you to look at your own reflection and say, "I can do better." It doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means refusing to settle. It means raising your standards. It means no longer allowing yourself to be average when you know greatness is within you. No, greatness is within you. Think about athletes at the highest level. What separates them from the rest? It's not just talent, it's accountability. A great athlete doesn't need a coach to constantly remind them to practice. They show up early, stay late, and push themselves harder than anyone else. They review their own mistakes, they study their own performance, and they take responsibility for their growth. They don't make excuses for a bad game. They analyze what went wrong and fix it. That's why they rise to the top. Success in any field requires that same mindset. You have to stop expecting someone else to make you great and start holding yourself to the standard of greatness. Accountability is also about consistency. Success doesn't come from one big leap. It comes from small, consistent steps taken every day. But consistency requires that you check yourself regularly. You can't just set a goal and then forget about it. You have to constantly evaluate your actions. Are you aligning your daily choices with your long-term vision? If you want financial freedom, are your spending habits reflecting that? If you want better health, are your daily meals and workouts reflecting that? Accountability forces you to connect your present actions to your future goals. It reminds you that every decision matters. Another powerful aspect of accountability is that it gives you control. When you blame others, you hand over your power. You say, I can't succeed because of them. But when you take responsibility, you reclaim your power. You say, I have the ability to change my situation. Even if you can't control everything around you, you can always control your effort, your attitude, and your response. That mindset transforms you from being powerless to being powerful. You stop waiting for life to happen and start making life happen. It's important to understand that accountability is not about perfection. You will make mistakes. You will fail. But accountability means you don't hide from those failures. You acknowledge them, you learn from them, and you use them as fuel to grow. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every mistake becomes a stepping stone. People who lack accountability run from failure and repeat the same mistakes over and over. People who embrace accountability face failure, head on, extract the lesson, and come back stronger. At its core, accountability is an act of self-respect. It says, I value my future too much to waste my present. It said, I respect myself enough to demand excellence from myself. It said, I owe it to me to live at the highest level. And that's the essence of Eric Thomas's message. You owe you. Nobody else owes you your dreams. Nobody else owes you your goals. Nobody else owes you success. You owe you. And the way you pay that debt is through accountability. By holding yourself to the standard of greatness every single day, by refusing to settle for excuses, and by doing the hard work when no one else is looking. When you embrace accountability, you become unstoppable. Because no matter what life throws at you, you no longer depend on external validation, external motivation, or external pressure. You build a system within yourself. You build the discipline, the honesty, and the responsibility to keep moving forward. And once you reach that level, success is no longer a matter of it becomes a matter of a win. Life has a way of testing us in the most unexpected ways. And those tests are often meant to reveal what we are truly made of. When difficulties strike, most people panic, complain, or give up. But the truth is, adversity is not sent to break us. It is sent to shape us. The storms you go through in life are not punishments. They are training sessions. They are opportunities to grow stronger, more disciplined, more resilient. Every time you face an obstacle, you are standing in front of a chance to evolve into the best version of yourself. This is why you cannot afford to look at challenges as enemies. They are your teachers. They are here to prepare you for the very life you've been praying for, the opportunities you've been hoping for, and the blessings you've been asking for. Without tests, you would never develop the strength to carry the weight of success. Think about it. No one becomes great without resistance. Muscles don't grow without weights. Character doesn't develop without trials. Diamonds don't form without extreme heat and pressure. If you want to shine, you have to be willing to endure the pressure that comes with greatness. Too many people want the rewards of success, but are not willing to go through the challenges that shape them into someone worthy of those rewards. You owe it to yourself to stop running from hard times and instead start embracing them as part of your journey. Every single challenge is a sign that you are on the right path, that you are being prepared for something bigger than yourself. Let's be clear. Adversity is not convenient. It never comes at a time when you're ready. It interrupts your plans, messes with your emotions, and sometimes breaks your heart. But here's the beauty of adversity. It doesn't leave you the same. It leaves you stronger, wiser, more patient, more compassionate, and more determined. If you let it, adversity can transform you into someone unstoppable. The key is your perspective. Do you see challenges as burdens, or do you see them as opportunities? That mindset determines whether you grow or whether you shrink. When life knocks you down, and the question is not whether you will fall, but how you will respond. Will you stay on the ground blaming the world, complaining about how unfair life is? Or will you rise up, dust yourself off, and declare, this will not break me, it will make me? Every champion you admire, every leader you respect, every role model you look up to has gone through their own fire. They've been betrayed, rejected, criticized, doubted, and tested. But they didn't give up. They didn't let adversity write their story. They turned their pain into power, their setbacks into comebacks. And so can you. Think about some of the greatest examples we know. A man like Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars, 27 years. He had every reason to be bitter, to give up, to let his circumstances destroy him. But he didn't. He came out stronger, wiser, more determined, and he changed an entire nation. Or think about someone like Oprah Winfrey, who endured poverty, abuse, and rejection early in her life. She could have let her past define her, but she used it to fuel her ambition, to build empathy, and to create one of the most impactful platforms in the world. Their greatness was born out of their struggle. Your story might not be the same, but your principle is. The hardships you face are not there to block you. They are there to build you. They are preparing you for something greater. If you can survive the tough seasons, you will thrive in the seasons of blessing. But the problem with many people is that they quit too soon. They go through the storm, but don't stick around long enough to see the rainbow. They give up during the test, not realizing that the breakthrough was just one more step away. You owe it to yourself to change your relationship with adversity, your relationship with adversity. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this teaching me? Instead of saying, this is unfair, start saying, this is preparing me. Because when you shift your mindset, you also shift your power. Adversity no longer becomes something you run from. It becomes something you grow from. That change in perspective will make you unstoppable. Another thing to understand is that adversity exposes the truth about you. It shows you what you are really made of. Anyone can smile when things are easy. Anyone can stay motivated when life is going their way. But when everything is falling apart, when money is tight, relationships are failing, health is fragile, that's when you see the real version of yourself. That's when your discipline, your character, and your faith are tested. And if you can remain strong during those times, there's nothing in life that can defeat you. Adversity also forces creativity. Some of the greatest inventions, businesses, and movements were born out of necessity, out of hardship. When resources are limited, when options are few, the human spirit finds a way to create something extraordinary. You might think your struggle is a curse, but it could be the very soil in which your greatest idea is planted. Don't despise the struggle. It could be your greatest gift. And let's not forget, adversity teaches you gratitude. When you have gone out, you learn to appreciate what you have. When you've lost people, you value relationships more. When you've been through pain, you don't take peace for granted. Gratitude doesn't grow in comfort, it grows in hardship. That's why some of the most thankful people you will ever meet are those who have been through the most difficult journeys. I know sometimes it feels unfair. I know sometimes it feels overwhelming. But remember this, you are stronger than you think. You have already survived 100% of your worst days. You have already proven that you can overcome. If you look back at your life, you'll realize that the things you thought would break you actually built you. The storms you thought you'd never survive actually strengthened you. So why would you stop now? Why would you doubt your ability to get through what you're going through today? You owe you the courage to keep going. You owe you the resilience to fight back. You owe you the determination to rise above. Don't let adversity turn you into a victim. Let it shape you into a victor. Every tear, every trial, every sleepless night is a seed. And if you don't quit, Those seeds will grow into a harvest of strength, wisdom, and success. At the end of the day, adversity is not your enemy. It is your ally, your teacher, your trainer. Embrace it, learn from it, grow through it. Because one day when you're standing in your victory, when you're living in your breakthrough, when you're walking in your purpose, you'll look back at the pain and say, it was worth it. And that moment will be the sweetest victory of all. Accountability is the glue that holds commitment and progress together. And when you begin to understand that you are responsible for every outcome in your life, something shifts. Many people spend their days pointing fingers, making excuses, or waiting for someone else to step in and fix their problems. But accountability doesn't work like that. It demands that you look in the mirror and admit that the results you have today are a reflection of the choices you've made, the actions you've taken, and the habits you've developed. No boss, no parent, no partner, no teacher, no coach. None of them can live your life for you. They can guide, they can advise, they can support, but at the end of the day, it's you who has to execute. When you embrace accountability, you stop blaming external circumstances and start recognizing that the power has always been in your hands to shape your destiny. This realization may be uncomfortable at first, but it is also liberating because it puts the control back where it belongs, with you. Accountability means owning both your successes and your failures. Many people are quick to take credit when things go well, but the real test of character is whether you can own the setbacks, the mistakes, and the missed opportunities. Too often when people fall short, they shift the blame. It was my boss's fault. The timing wasn't right. Well, I didn't have enough support. But here's the truth. When you hold yourself accountable, you take full responsibility regardless of the circumstances. You may not control everything that happens, but you control how you respond. You control the effort you give, the persistence you show, the discipline you apply. Once you accept that, you stop waiting for life to give you handouts and instead start creating the outcomes you want. Accountability is not about guilt or shame. It's about growth. It's about saying, yes, I messed up. I'm gonna learn, adjust, and come back stronger. Think about the great athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders, and creators throughout history. They didn't rise to the top because everything went perfectly. They rose because they took accountability when things went wrong and used those moments as fuel. Michael Jordan didn't hide from his missed shots. He embraced them as the reason he got better. Steve Jobs didn't run from being fired from his own company. He used the lesson to come back stronger and build one of the most successful businesses in the world. Accountability turns pain into purpose, failure into fuel, and struggle into strength. Without accountability, failure just becomes wasted potential. With accountability, failure becomes the stepping stone to greatness. Another aspect of accountability is discipline. When you hold yourself accountable, you're saying, I will show up every day, even when I don't feel like it. You don't wait for motivation, because motivation is fleeting. Accountability makes you stick to your word, even when the emotions that has inspired you have long faded. If you tell yourself you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. and work out, accountability demands that you follow through. If you tell yourself you're going to study for 2 hours a day, accountability means you don't make excuses when your friends call you to hang out. The strongest people are not the most talented, they are the most accountable. They don't let themselves off the hook. They don't lower the standard when things get hard. They keep their promises to themselves. Accountability also forces you to measure your actions against your goals. Too often, people say they want success, but their actions don't align with that desire. They say they want to be fit, but they don't commit to the gym. They say they want to be financially free, but they spend recklessly. They say they want to build a business, but they don't study, strategize, or execute. Accountability exposes that gap. It makes you face the hard truth. Your actions are not matching your words. That sting, that uncomfortable realization, is actually a gift. It gives you the chance to realign, to adjust, to take ownership, and to finally begin acting in a way that matches the future you say you want. The beauty of accountability is that it doesn't just improve your life. They start to trust you, respect you, and in many cases, follow your example. Accountability creates influence, and influence can create impact far greater than you ever imagined. People are drawn to those who do what they say they will do. In a world full of broken promises and empty words, accountability is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. But make no mistake, accountability is not easy. It requires humility. It requires honesty. It requires the courage to admit when you've fallen short. Most people avoid accountability because they fear failure. They fear judgment, or they fear the truth about their lack of effort. But here's the paradox. Avoiding accountability only prolongs failure, while embracing accountability shortens the path to success. The moment you stop making excuses is the moment you start making progress. The moment you stop blaming others is the moment you start building power. Accountability is the bridge between dreaming and achieving. One of the biggest challenges in life is to hold yourself accountable when nobody's watching. It's easy to do the right thing when eyes are on you, when you're being cheered, when there's external validation. But accountability shows up in the quiet moments, in the early mornings when you could hit snooze, in the late nights when you could give up, in the small choices that nobody else sees but that add up to massive results over time. What you do when no one is looking determines who you become when everyone is. Accountability is built in private long before it's celebrated in public. To live with accountability, you have to create standards for yourself that are non-negotiable. You can't let your feelings dictate your actions because feelings are temporary and inconsistent. One day you feel like working hard, the next you don't. If you allow feelings to run your life, you'll never achieve consistency. Accountability requires principle over preference, discipline over desire, and commitment over comfort. It demands that you stop living at the level of your feelings and start living at the level of your standards. The truth is, success doesn't care how you feel. It only responds to consistency, discipline, and accountability. At its core, accountability is about freedom. It might sound counterintuitive because discipline and responsibility often feel restrictive. But the reality is that accountability frees you from regret, from excuses, and from wasted potential. It frees you from living life as a victim and instead allows you to live as the author of your own story. When you embrace accountability, you stop waiting for luck and start creating opportunity. You stop drifting and start directing. You stop hoping and stop hoping and start executing. The weight of accountability is heavy at first, but once you carry it, it builds strength you didn't know you had. Ultimately, accountability is about ownership. It's about waking up every day and declaring, I'm responsible for the outcome of my life. It's about refusing to hand that power over to anyone else. Yes, challenges will come. Yes, setbacks will happen. But accountability means you will always find a way forward because you recognize that your destiny is not determined by chance, but by choice. You owe it to yourself to live with accountability because without it, your dreams will remain just dreams. With it, your dreams become inevitable. When you embrace the idea that you owe you, one of the most important realizations you come to is that success is not only about the external rewards, but also about the fulfillment that comes from living a life aligned with your true potential. Too many people spend their lives chasing recognition, money, or validation from others without ever pausing to ask if the path they are on really brings them meaning. When you owe you, it means you refuse to settle for a life that does not fulfill you. It means you choose to honor your own heart, your own dreams, and your own sense of purpose. Because at the end of the day, you are the one who has to live with the choices you make. Nobody else can breathe your breath. Nobody else can live your life. And nobody else can carry the burden of your regrets. That is your responsibility. And that is why fulfillment matters as much, if not more, than any external definition of success. Fulfillment comes when you wake up every day and know that the life you are building reflects your values, your passions, and your true capabilities. It does not mean everything will always be easy or that every day will be perfect. But it does mean you will feel a sense of alignment. Think about how many people spend decades in jobs they hate, relationships they've outgrown, or situations that suffocate their spirit, all because they were taught to chase the approval of others. They were taught that as long as they had the paycheck, the title, the house, or the image, they had succeeded. But what happens when they go to bed at night and feel that emptiness? What happens when they look in the mirror and know deep down that they have settled for less than they were capable of? That is the pain of living someone else's definition of success. And that pain is far worse than the temporary discomfort of pushing yourself to build the life you truly want. When you embrace fulfillment, you shift from asking, what will people think, to asking, what do I think? How do I feel about the choices I'm making? This shift is powerful because it puts the responsibility back where it belongs, on you. If you wake up each day excited about what you're building, then you are already winning. If your work, your relationships, and your pursuits bring you energy instead of draining it, then you are aligned with fulfillment. Fulfillment is not always about grandeur. Sometimes it's found in the small things, the way you treat people, the progress you make on a personal goal, or the pride you feel when you keep a promise to yourself. It's about creating a life where your actions reflect who you really are and what you really value. Now, fulfillment requires honesty, and that honesty is not always easy to face. You owe it to yourself to stop lying about what you want. Some of you have convinced yourself that you don't want more, that you're content, when in reality, you're afraid to admit that you desire something greater. You're afraid because admitting it means you'll have to do something about it. But denying your desires does not erase them. It only creates frustration and resentment that builds up over time. The truth is, you cannot trick yourself into being happy with a life that does not satisfy you. Fulfillment will always call you, and the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. If you want to silence that voice, the only way is to answer it. You owe it to yourself to listen to that calling and take steps toward it, no matter how small those steps may seem at first. Consider the difference between achievement and fulfillment. Achievement is about reaching a goal, crossing a finish line, or hitting a target. Fulfillment, on the other hand, is about meaning. You can achieve a lot and still feel empty if the achievements don't align with your purpose. You might get the degree, the promotion, or the recognition, but if those things do not speak to your heart, they will feel hollow. But when you are fulfilled, even the small wins feel monumental because they are stepping stones toward the life you actually want. That's why you owe you, because settling for hollow achievements is not enough. You were not put here just to check off boxes. You were put here to live a life that is full, rich, and meaningful. Fulfillment also requires courage. Courage to say no when everyone expects you to say yes. Courage to walk away from what no longer serves you. Courage to try something new, even when failure is a possibility. But here's the truth. Failure on the path to fulfillment is not real failure. It is growth. Every setback teaches you something about yourself, sharpens your resilience, and brings you closer to the life you're supposed to live. What's truly a failure is staying stuck in something that makes you miserable just because it feels safe. Safety may protect you from discomfort, but it will never deliver fulfillment. When you live a life of fulfillment, you also inspire others without even trying. People notice when someone is living authentically. They notice the joy, the peace, and the energy that comes from alignment. You become a living example of what's possible when you choose yourself. That doesn't mean everyone will support you. Some people may even resent it because your courage reminds them of the risk they're too afraid to take. But that's not your concern. Remember, you owe you. Your responsibility is not to make everyone else comfortable. It's to honor your own truth. Practical fulfillment means checking in with yourself daily. Ask yourself, does this decision bring me closer to the life I want? Or does it pull me further away? Does this action align with my values, or am I compromising them to please others? If you can learn to answer those questions honestly, you'll find that fulfillment becomes your compass. It will guide you through the noise of life, through the expectations of family, society, or culture, and keep you on track with what really matters. Fulfillment also forces you to redefine success. Instead of measuring success only by money, status, or recognition, you begin to measure it by joy, growth, peace of mind, and contribution. Success becomes about living a life where you don't have to escape on the weekends because you're drained from the week. It becomes about waking up with a sense of purpose, even if the world doesn't applaud you for it. That is real wealth. That is real success. And the best part is, it's available to anyone willing to claim it. In the end, when you say, I owe me, what you are really saying is, I refuse to leave this earth without experiencing the fullness of who I am. You are saying, I will not rob myself of the life I was capable of because of fear, doubt, or the opinions of others. You are saying, I will pursue not just achievements, but fulfillment. because I deserve to live a life that feels meaningful to me. And that is the essence of owning your journey. You owe you the gift of fulfillment because nobody else can give it to you and nobody else can take it away.